Hi, and welcome to a chat with Matt Simpson, the Republican candidate running to fill the 114th District Assembly seat being vacated by Dan Steck. Matt currently is the Horicon supervisor. I'm Jared Stem, editor at Manchester Media, and today I'm joined by our publisher and owner, Mark Vinciguerra, and our reporters, Jay Mullen and Austin Crozier. We're all pleased to be sitting down together in Manchester Media's Granville offices to discuss the issues facing the residents of the 114th District and Mr. Simpson's plans and positions. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started. My first question for you is, why are you running, and what characteristics do you bring to the table that Claudia Bramer and Evelyn Wood do not?
Well, I'm running, give you a little background. I have, everything that I've ever worked towards, or my goals, were focused on being in the Adirondacks. I'm born and raised in Warren County, and I love that area. I'm an outdoorsman, hunter, enthusiast, all things in the Adirondacks. So there was a crossroads in my life where I had a decision to make whether I was going to be an electrical engineer, go for that degree, or whether I was going to continue with my drywall business. I had a sheetrock installation finishing business. I decided that I really enjoyed my career and I was going to put all my efforts in that, in developing that business and growing it. And it was all focused on, providing enough income and stability that I'd be able to raise a family, buy a house, and have a secure future. And through those 30 years of being in business, raising a family, in this region, I certainly felt where my desires, my goals were impacted by different aspects, decisions that were being made in New York State, at the New York State Legislature. It seemed like I would work harder, and I'd have to work harder because of the next piece of legislation that was passed or the next regulation, and it was a constantly evolving field. So my son graduated Paul Smith College this past year, and he's a biologist, and it's really disheartening to see him not be able to find a job in his career. Now, that's a huge disappointment when your whole goal, all the things that are important to you, your family, providing for your family, and then have him graduate, not be able to find a job in the Adirondacks, and he moved to Ludlow, Vermont. Now, Ludlow is beautiful. It's a lot like the region that I live in, and it's about 2 hours from home. But his challenges combined with the challenges that I felt as a business owner, a resident in the park, has given me real concern for the future of this district, future for my family. My parents are still alive, my residents in the town of Horicon and in this district, especially in the Adirondack Park, where you have 6 million acres, 3 million of it is privately owned, 3 million is publicly owned, and all the challenges and the balance that really should exist there. So I was elected to the town board in 2012. Became very involved with my community, and it was one of the most rewarding experiences I had ever had gone through, meeting 800 or so of my fellow town residents that I didn't know. I knocked on their door, and I heard their concerns, and so I won that election. I became a town board member, and I became very involved with environmental issues in my community, having 2 lakes in the town of Horicon, and we're blessed to have 2 wonderful lakes, 2 boat launches. It's a tourism economy, so there's a lot of people in the summertime, and then there's about a fraction, maybe a fifth of the people in the winter. So, but I grew to understand the importance of the businesses that were in my community, and their success was based on, a successful tourism economy, protection of our environmental assets, our natural resources. And then that led to, more issues where now you've got the needs of your residents that need to be in balance. You're in a rural area. There's, healthcare is a real issue. Meaningful jobs is a real issue. Growth in your community. Even socialization. People having activities and things to do. And so I embraced my job. I got very involved, and the supervisor at the time, after 2 years, decided that he was going to retire. At that point, I said, I don't think I'm, he was talking to me about considering a run for supervisor. I said to the supervisor, I said, I've got a business. My son is just, entering college. I'm not so sure I can do this along with my business. And he said, no, you can do it. So I did. I thought about it. I slept on it, and I talked to my family. Decided that was where I really wanted to work. I became supervisor, and I was elected in 2013, and began my first term as supervisor in 14. This is my 7th year as town supervisor. Again, all of the challenge. Seems like every step of the way there was always a challenge that would present itself. And about 3 months into being supervisor, after I figured out I had to work on things that the supervisor really couldn't. He could make you aware of things you need to think about or planning, but you really have to go through the experiences and the challenges to figure out your way of dealing with it. It's there's a lot of uniqueness between how people deal with issues and use their different skills. So the budget was a big learning curve, but I had a budget with my business, so that worked very well. But it didn't take me long to realize that most of the issues that were affecting my community and the county, Warren County, in a large part, are happening outside of my control. They're now it's the Adirondack Park Agency, it's environmental groups, it's business groups, it's a lot of different advocacy groups, and so I met that challenge and got very involved with that. I became a member of the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages. I was elected or appointed by my colleagues. There was an open seat. And soon after that, I became president of the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages. And all the way, I had been developing relationships with the Adirondack Park Agency, our state legislators, spent a lot of time in Albany, working with the governor's office, leaders in the majority, leaders in the minority, whoever we needed to work with to find solutions and common ground on our issues. And so that brings me to, fast forwarding to this opportunity with that was created when Senator Little announced her retirement, and then soon after, Assemblyman Dan Steck announcing that he's going to run for state senate, so it became an open seat. I feel that I have been doing this job as supervisor of the town, or being a supervisor in the Adirondack Park, being involved throughout this district on many issues, whether it's wastewater infrastructure, cellular broadband, the road salt reduction efforts throughout the Adirondack Park and through the region. That's a very important issue. Invasive species. We developed invasive species programs within the town of Oregon that led to broader programs. I was involved with the larger program that now is, you'll see all throughout the Adirondack Park at many of the lakes where there's an inspection decontamination program there. And so I've worked with every agency, DEC. I've got a great relationship with all of the agencies that I would interact with, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Again, my name's Austin Crozier. I'm a reporter for the Granville Sentinel. Could you just explain to our viewers and for our readers, could you tell us about the day-to-day responsibilities as a member of the New York State Assembly?
Well, first of all, you know, your constituent services gotta be, that's gotta be a focus. There's many issues, just like being a town supervisor, where you're responsible for, or you're gonna get the calls, whether it's public safety, issues with, maybe there's, I've had issues with emergency services bills, you know, things that residents just don't know where to turn, how to deal with their issues or answer their questions. So constituent services, number one. Next, there's three branches. You know, you've got the executive, you've got the Senate, and you have the Assembly. And each one, you know, it's pretty interesting working with the three agencies and the three different branches and understanding how they work. And they don't always work in sync. And not a lot really works always in sync in Albany. But you know, I think an assembly representative is there to represent their constituents and meet their needs to, you know, in their community, whether it's a business issue, you know, there's grants that are available for all sorts of startups. There's also issues in the Adirondack Park in my region, infrastructure such as broadband and cellular. You know, a good portion of the town that I'm representing does not have reliable broadband. It doesn't really have reliable hardline phone service. So ultimately, a lot of those calls end up in either the assembly person seat or the senator's seat, senator's office, to respond to those issues and try to work through, you know, places where they're lacking those services.
Right.
And then there's also, you know, the bigger issues such as, you know, the environmental issues right now, you know, with climate change being a real forefront issue. You know, we need leadership from Albany on how to navigate through this. You know, it's got to take into consideration the residents that actually work here, that live here, the businesses, and how we're all going to work in harmony towards the goals of counteracting climate change.
I'm Jay Mullen with the Whitehall Times. You touched on the business that you had in your past, and your opponent, Claudia Bramer, has singled you out for shutting down the business to become the town supervisor. How do you respond to that?
I'm really glad you asked that question. I made the decision to close my business down 2.5 years ago, and I can remember it was Good Friday that let me back up. When I was in business, I didn't really talk about my business very much at home. When I was done with my business, other than answering my cell phone, I was the guy who was out there 7 days a week earning a living, you know, making sure that my employees were paid. You know, I had to sign those payroll checks every day. I had to pay workers' comp. It was a very stressful time being in business. And my business was growing, and my responsibilities as an elected official were growing to the point where I was starting to feel like I got to give one or the other up, and I was coming up on another election cycle. And like I said, this was around Easter. So I had discussed this with my wife, that I was trying to figure this out, whether I was going to run again or not. I wasn't supervisor because for the salary by any means. It was because I really enjoyed representing my community, and I took it seriously, and I love my community. But I also really loved my career as a drywall contractor. I had relationships with my builders for over 30 years, same contractors. So it was a very difficult decision to make, a very difficult time for me to deal with that. So I decided I was going to take a week off. So Good Friday, I told my wife, I said, this is a good time for me to get away. I'm going to go down to South Carolina, take a little time off, visit my family. I drove straight down. Monday morning, after spending Easter with my family, after spending the weekend Easter with my family there, I was going to head to the Outer Banks. Instead, I kept heading north, and I drove straight home Monday night. I got home in the middle of the night. My wife was sleeping. The next morning, I had made the decision before my wife woke up that I was going to stick with my elected job and give up my drywall business. It wasn't fair for me after 30 years to be the person that was only sending out invoices to my builders. These guys are my friends. They put me through, they helped me put my son through college. They helped me raise my family through providing great employment. And, but I made that decision. I told my wife, I said, I'm going to give up my drywall business. And I still remember it today. My wife said to me, just do it. She wasn't concerned at all. And I was really shocked. I thought that she would talk me out of it. She said, it's just not worth it. She saw that I was already working 7 days a week before I became elected. Now I'm stressed because I'm not on the job watching my employees, being there for my builders. And so I made that decision. I set the date for June 15th because that's a quarterly filing. That gave me plenty of time to find jobs for my employees to make sure that they were okay. They were, my brother-in-law worked for me for over 15 years. I couldn't just say, hey, I'm done. And they made very good money, so these were high-paying jobs. And so I'm proud of the fact that I made that decision because I don't think it would have been fair to the people that I represented to be divided by a lucrative business that could impact my decisions of how much effort I put into on behalf of the people I represent.
Great. So switching gears, Second Amendment is really taken very seriously by our small upstate communities like Granville and Whitehall. Why should voters who are passionate about this subject vote for you? And then a tag-along question is, what are your thoughts on police reform?
I'm pro Second Amendment. I shot competitively for several years in the New York State Indoor Pistol Championship. It's one of my passions. I have a New York State pistol permit, a Warren County pistol permit. My grandfather was a captain in the New York State Police, somebody who I looked up to growing up my entire life. And so I support all of law enforcement. I think that there needs to be consequences when you make a decision to impact someone else's life, break a law, or there needs to be consequences. I think that in this situation, I think that 99.9% of the law enforcement people that I know work hard every day, put their lives on the line, protecting our communities. And in any group of people, there's always someone who makes a mistake. I think that's an isolated incident that happens within certain groups. The reforms, I think that there are improvements that can be made, and I think that they're making them. But I support law enforcement and their ability to protect our communities.
All right. Next one I have for you, Matt, is how do you aim to support small homegrown businesses in the 114th district that have taken a hit from the consequences of COVID-19?
Well, I think that that's a very, very important part of our economy are these home-based businesses, homegrown businesses. They need support from New York State, such as the reliable broadband. We need to invest in the infrastructure for home-based businesses. It works in harmony with protecting our natural resources. You know, we don't need brick and mortar buildings for every business. It's a very important part of our economy. I would look for ways to invest in their startups and figure out ways that we can support them. I think that being a past business owner, the regulatory burdens on businesses and you know, they don't. It's not reflected in the size. I was speaking to a business owner that pays an extreme amount of money to purchase liquor for his residents, alcoholic beverages for his residents, or for his business, that pays the same as a chain restaurant that sells way more beverages, alcoholic beverages, and it's really cost prohibitive for this person. And they're made to, they can only use one distributor. You know, there's a lot of controls on that. So there's businesses that we need to look at all the regulations that impact small businesses and make it easier, streamline it, less burdensome. I know that I used to go through at least 3 audits every year. It was very burdensome. I would have to take 6 hours off a day. They would say the appointment would be at 10 o'clock. And this was New York State insurance money. So this is, it was the only choice I had. I couldn't go to a private insurer. They would say they'd be there at 10, they might show up at 11, they might show up at 12. And I would sit there not making money, and I could be 100 miles away from the job that I should have been on. So I would lose a day's pay, and a day's pay for me was very significant. So I think we need to figure out how to support them much better than we are.
I'm going to steal Austin's question that's coming up in a little bit about broadband connectivity, because it's a huge issue, and particularly with the increase through COVID-19 of remote learning and working. So what are your plans to improve that connectivity?
Well, we need to, the data that we found out that the data was incorrect on where people were actually served. It was showing census blocks, and there were many instances where not everybody was served by broadband. And then even the definition of broadband was all over the place. And what we really need, though, is high-speed broadband for everyone. There's going to be certain instances where somebody chooses to build a house, 0.6 of a mile off the road, that taxpayers shouldn't be paying from the road to their house for that infrastructure. And their option may only be satellite. But I think we can improve the situation by investing in high-speed or broadband, fiber broadband in rural areas. We need to do it. That's going to help our communities be sustainable going forward. We need it for long-distance learning, and I'm not sure where we're going to go, what's going to happen with long-distance learning and with the whole COVID crisis. Whether we're always going to need that option to be able to connect at home for our children for long-distance learning. So, and it's also advantageous for adults who want a long-distance learning. I think that our community colleges, our SUNY Adirondack College, would greatly benefit by much better broadband infrastructure. They could offer, more people would have availability to long-distance learning, college degrees.
Do you consider broadband connectivity be like a utility, like electricity?
It should be.
Yeah.
It should be just like electrification of our country. I think we're behind most other countries in recognizing and making it happen. But if we want to be in the 21st century, we need to do this now.
Right. Can I just continue on? I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Claudia Breen was very passionate about the environment. Do you have any plans or policies on the environment that you would try to push for if you're elected?
Well, I think I'm involved with the road salt reduction efforts in New York State. I'm part of the working group in the Adirondack Park. Yeah, I think it's very important. We need to protect our waters, and we're poisoning our waters with salt. We're contaminating private wells. That's just unacceptable. We need to find a solution to this and reduce those negative impacts. As far as other environment, I know that we just added in committee a resolution to support the Green Amendment, which recognizes the environmental injustice. I had my concerns about that. I had raised my concerns that I'm always concerned when we pass ideology rather than passing real solutions, resolutions that are going to solve the problem today. And as I travel throughout the district, wastewater infrastructure is one of our largest issues that I don't think New York State is ready to tackle, but we need to. Our communities are not large enough. We don't have enough users to offset the cost of putting that infrastructure in. So we need to step in as New York State, support those communities and see that happen. I know there's a municipality that I'm very familiar with that still, they have combined sewer overflows. So when it storms, the sewage and the combined stormwater gets released into the Hudson River. It's over 1 million gallons of untreated sewage combined water going into the Hudson River. We need a solution for that today. I don't understand why we get into the ideology stuff when, there's been many opportunities to appropriate money towards those issues, and that's repeated all throughout this district. And I suspect it's all throughout the state. I know that I had conversations with the governor's office when they were proposing the $3 billion bond act. I said, you could focus the whole $3 billion on wastewater infrastructure, which would be a great economic driver for our communities. That's when a new business locates in a municipality, and then they find that they have antiquated wastewater treatment systems or clean water systems, they pay the cost of that down the road. So and it doesn't go down, and so we need to really focus on that. But I'm an advocate for the environment. I think that we need a balance between the environmental advocates that are pushing in one direction. I mean, we need to address those issues. We also need to figure out that balance within our community so that it works.
That actually goes right into one of my next questions is, what are some actions you look forward to completing in terms of limiting climate change?
Well, I think we need to make progress in our less reliance on our fossil fuels. The electric vehicles are getting better and better each year. We need to keep striving for technology that would reduce the harmful impacts to our environment. I think we need to promote our forests are a great asset to our clean air and absorbing a lot of the carbon that's in the air. There are carbon sinks, and so we do need to safeguard our resources. Solar is a great option. I think we need to figure that out. We have 2 solar projects on 2 of our buildings in our municipality, and we did that early on. We probably had those 7, 8 years now, and so the contracts have gotten much better over the years. I'm not so sure we're really seeing the benefit as the property owner with that system on there, but I think it's getting better and we're learning, and I think the technology is getting much better, and we need to promote that.
So as someone who knows how strenuous yet rewarding it can be to be involved with, agriculture. Where does protecting farmers, especially those within Washington County, lie on your list of priorities?
That ties into the environmental issues. There's a lot of pressure on farmers right now because of their activities and impacts to the environment, and that's what I'm referring to as far as balance. We need to support our farms. We cannot put our farms out of business and not work with them on solutions to dealing with runoff into our water. But the healthy environment is tied to the health of a farm. I mean, it affects everybody. It affects every animal, every business.
Okay, question here. For you, you talked about reducing the tax burden on the residents of the 114th district. How do you do that and still maintain services?
Well, I think I can give you examples in the town of Horicon that I live in. It's not really, I guess at the state, there's going to be efficiencies, but we've done a lot of shared services. We have a bookkeeper 1 day a week now. We share with another town. We pay 1/5 of her salary. We share an assessor. We've been able to be more efficient with everything we've done without raising taxes. Matter of fact, I lowered taxes last year in the town of Horicon through those savings, and I think that we're in good shape going forward. At the state, I think we really need to prioritize all spending. I think there needs to be a paradigm shift in the grant programs. I think that the grants really need to be tied to economic benefit to all the taxpayers. I think that there's a lot of good projects, but as I talked about before, wastewater infrastructure that would support economic growth that would offset the burden on property taxpayers if you could provide me. I was chairman of the Washington County IDA, and I really have a lot of respect for my colleagues that are still there. I'm no longer chairman. I'm no longer on that board. I struggle with the need to have needing an agency like that can provide tax benefits to a company coming here. My question is, why aren't we addressing the underlying issues? Why we need to attract businesses here? What business would not want to be located in this district? It's a beautiful place to work. We have people here that need jobs, but there's better places that they can invest in and make more money. So I understand the need right now, but we need to attack the reason why. We need to really address why we're not competitive, why we need to offer incentives to businesses to come here or to even stay here. I would like to get to a point where we didn't need to incentivize a company to come here or a business to locate here, or incentivize them not to leave us. That's really what we should focus on.
Right. If you don't mind me asking, what do you think some of those reasons for them would be of why there's not an immediate draw to come to?
Property taxes, lack of investment in infrastructure. We had an industrial park that still had lots available, but those lots really couldn't support industry now. They don't have the capacity of the sewer, the wastewater system. So we would have to invest in that wastewater system now. In my opinion, I think we should have planned. I wasn't there, and I don't know. I wasn't involved with the planning of that industrial park. But I think when we invest in industrial parks, they need to meet the needs of businesses that would come here, and not just spend the money to develop a park and say we have a park, and then it's not. I don't. In my opinion, it was good for our communities, but it could have been much better if we had invested more money up front in the infrastructure, or provided the infrastructure. Would have a greater benefit. We run into problems with even the amount of electricity that would be needed by, and I don't mean at a park, but just about in certain locations, you need to be close to a certain level of electrical supply to support it.
Jay, go ahead with number 12.
Absolutely. So you brought up healthcare a little bit earlier on, that it was, a big issue. What's your stance on healthcare within the 114th district now? Would you like to keep things the way they are? Would you want to change them? And if you did want to change them from where they are now, what, steps would you take?
Well, I think we need to support, any growth in developing available healthcare facilities. We have Hudson Headwaters Health Network in the neighboring town of Chester, and that's been great for myself and my family to utilize their services. I think that's important in a rural district that we have those opportunities. The Glens Falls Hospital is 35 miles from the town of Horicon, so I'm grateful that we have the Hudson Headwaters Network. And with the aging population, it's even more important. The demographics in my region, the age is going up. There's less younger people moving there.
So you would support the creation of more networks like Hudson
Yes.
Headwaters, or more
Yeah,
centers?
more availability, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
To prevent-
And I'm sure there's going to be options. I know that there's been growth, in Warren County coming north out of Saratoga in available services, specialties.
Could you tell us a little bit about your support of the Public Officers Accountability Act?
I would support it. I think that, I have nothing, I'm an open book. I think every elected official should be an open book and should be held accountable for their actions, their ethics.
The next question I have for you is, how has your time spent as town supervisor of Horicon prepared you to run for this position, and what have you learned that makes you the right candidate? You've already spoken a little bit about facing adversity. I'm assuming that plays a big role in this.
Well, it's prepared me because I'm a hard worker, and I work towards a solution until I can find that solution. I'll work with whoever I need to work with to seek common ground. I take on as much as I can take on. I think it's important. I love my job. When you're the town supervisor, you really are the person that everybody calls. You're responsible for everything. That's prepared me better than any other candidate in this race. In the town of Horicon, I'm responsible for the public safety. I'm responsible for the maintenance and snow removal of all the roads. Working with our highway superintendent, I'm responsible for keeping our services there for our residents, and also providing that benefit. They're paying for it, and we can't put that burden on the taxpayers of higher taxes. So we need to find solutions. We need to work harder, get the job done.
So other than what you had just said, being a town supervisor will separate you from your, competitors, what else would you say separates you from them aside from just that?
Separates me from,
Like why would somebody want to vote for you over them? Like what would separate?
well, for at least the last 3 years as president of the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages, and at least 2 years prior to that as supervisor, I became really involved with that association and became a board member. I've spent my time working in Albany and developing relationships, working towards solutions on all of our issues that are facing us. The Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages represents 101 towns and villages in the Adirondack Park. And, a lot of the issues are the same issues throughout the district. It's, I was involved with the passage or the legislation that, you've heard of the Health and Safety Land Bank, land account that Senator Little passed. There was a project that was used as the reason why, or as an example why we need this. That bridge was in the town of Horicon. Actually, it went through it was, at the time, it was from the town of Warrensburg to the town of Bolton. We wanted to locate it, it would go from the town of Chester to the town of Horicon. But that was a real issue that took 10 years to find a solution. And really, the solution came at a Common Ground Alliance meeting where a diverse representation of people from throughout the Adirondacks and even beyond all got together. It was in Long Lake, and we talked about how we could do this. How can we solve this problem where we have the Adirondack Park and we have the New York State Constitution and the Park Act? How do we, municipalities are challenged by working within those confines, and the idea of having a land bank was a great solution. Where there would be no net loss of parkland, could be replaced with land that's identified as replacement land, and we can move forward with projects, and that supports our communities. That bridge is very important to the town of Horicon because of emergency response. It was about a 10 or 15 minute delay by emergency services for over 10 years with a bridge that had been red flagged and it was impassable.
So moving on to the election this year, what are your thoughts about voting is already going on, and about absentee ballots and mail-in ballots, and what's your position? A lot of people are voting that way.
I'm going to vote in person.
Mm-hmm.
My parents will probably vote absentee ballot. I know they requested it. I think that people should have that option. I think they should have the right to request one. I would never stand in the way of somebody wanting to utilize an absentee ballot.
And my final question for you is, what was your reaction to last night's presidential debate?
I had hoped that I would see, leadership showing how we're going to deal with coming out of this crisis, and how we're going to deal with, and I'm not singling it out either participant, I just, it was a little, I can't think of the right word, but it wasn't what I was looking for.
Right.
It deteriorated rather quickly, and it's concerning. It's concerning that I don't know what the path is, what we're gonna do.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about yourself or your candidacy before we wrap things up?
I'm just honored to have this opportunity. I really have the passion for representing this district. I'm born and raised here, building a family and building a business, and being elected in a small town, and understanding how important it is to be involved in your community and build relationships. I just look forward to this opportunity. A lot of people have asked me, well, I'm a Republican, so they would say, well, why would you want to be in the minority in the assembly? Yeah, I can utilize all of my assets and all the things that I really enjoy about the first 53 years of my life, developing relationships, focusing on issues, representing the person that I'm working for, which is what I did for 31 years as a drywall contractor.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come to Granville this afternoon, and good luck to you in your campaign, and we are eager to see the outcome on election day, just a few weeks.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.